So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths paper of November 2023, Foundation Paper 2, which is a calculator paper. Now before we get started, I'll include a question breakdown so you can see which question refers to which topic. So if you do struggle with a particular question, you can see what topic it refers to and then maybe go back and revise that topic or review your notes. And I'll also include a link to the 162 Maths contents page, which gives you much easier access to all the lesson videos, goes over every single topic at GCSE and Key Stage 3, and also give you easy access to other GCSE exam paper walkthroughs, topic tests and the GCSE audits, which I strongly recommend as a really useful tool when revising for your GCSEs. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1 reads, converts 800 centimetres into metres. Now to convert centimetres into metres, all we need to do here is divide by 100 because there are 100 centimetres in a metre. So it's going to be 800 divided by 100, which gives us an answer of 8. And again, we don't really need to show you working out for 1 mark questions. So if you know the answer, you can just write it down. Question 2, it says the temperature was minus 11 degrees centigrade, increases by 5 degrees centigrade. Work out the new temperature. So for this, we just need to do minus 11 plus 5, which gives us the answer of minus 6. Moving on to question 3a, it says here is a grid, and it says what percentage of the grid is shaded. Now here you can see we've got a 10 by 10 grid, so every little square represents 1%, and if we count the number of shaded squares or the number of rows of columns of 10, we get an answer of 60%. Then moving on to question 3b, it says here is a different grid, and here we've got 5 out of 25 squares shaded. So what we want to do is convert it to percentage. We want our denominator to be 100, so I multiply 25 by 4, so I need to do the same to the top, and 5 times 4 gives me an answer of 20. Moving on to question 4a, it says solve x over 3 equals 6, and now with solving equations we want to get x by itself, so we want to get rid of the 3. What's the 3 doing? It's dividing, so to remove it we need to multiply. So here we've got x equals 3 times 6, which is 18. Then for 4b we do the same sort of philosophy. We want to try and get x by itself, so we need to get rid of the positive 3 first, so we do that by doing the opposite. So 27 take away 3 is 24. And then we need to get rid of the 2, and what's the 2 doing? It's multiplying, so we divide by 2, which gives us 24 divided by 2, so x equals 12. Then moving on to question 5, it says work out 9 over 4 as a decimal, and there's a couple of ways in which you can do this. We can either use division, remembering to write, we're having no remainders, so we're just working out this sum here. So how many 4s going to 9? That goes 2, with a remainder of 1. And then how many 4s going to 10? That's going to be 2 again with a remainder of 2. And how many 4s going to 20? That's going to be 5, so leaving us with an answer of 2.25. Alternately, you could have recognised that 9 over 4 is equal to 2 and a quarter. A quarter is 0.25, 2 plus a quarter gives us our answer of 2.25. So moving on to question 6, it says complete the bank statement, and so for credit that's basically things being added, and for debit that's being things being taken away. And again, you can gauge that from what the description says. So rent is something that you've been taken out, refund is when you're getting money back, and wages is when you're getting something in as well. So for this box here, if I just label this as number 1, so for number 1 the calculation we need to do is 736.28, and it's going to be minus 450, and that should give us an answer of 286.28. Then for number 2, what we need to do is we need to do 286.28 plus 25, and that should give us an answer of 311.28. And then for number 3, for this what we need to do is 311.28 plus 1830.29, and type that into our calculator, and we should get an answer of 2141, I should say. So let me just correct that. 0.57. And there we go. And again, don't worry about the pound sign if you've missed it off, or if you do add it, because it's already written in our column heading. For number 7, it says put all the numbers 4, 5, 6, 10 and 20 in the grid so that the numbers in each row and each column multiplied to give us 120. So for this, what we want to do is complete. So we've got 3 squares we need to complete. So try and opt to ones where you've got 2 numbers already filled in. So I'm going to go for this one first. So here 2 times 12 is 24. 24 120 divided by 24 gives me an answer of 5. So 5 goes here. For the second one I'm going to fill in this one here. So again we've got 1 times 12 is 12, and then we've got 12 or 120 divided by 12 gives us an answer of 10. Then for the third one we then can fill in this one. So here we've got 3 times 10, which is 30. 120 divided by 30 gives me 4, so 4 goes here. Then for the next one we can then fill in, so we can then fill in either of the 2 missing ones. So let's just label this one as number 4. So here I've got 4 times 5, which is 120, and then it's 20 rather, and then 120 divided by 20 equals 6. And then finally for number 5 we've got 6 times 1, which is 6. 120 divided by 6 is 20, and so 20 goes here. There we go. Moving on to question 8, it says the graph below is used to convert between pounds and Norwegian krone. And it says for the first question, it says convert 720 krone into pounds. Now if I just zoom out just very gently, so we've got it all on our screen. And so what we want to do is find 720, which is the first little square above 700. We then go across either with a finger or with a ruler, and that's the number there that we want to pick, and you can see that it's dead on 60, so our answer there is 60. Then for 8b it says convert £500 into krone. Now unfortunately the scale only goes up to 100, but we do know that £100 is equivalent to 1,200 krone. So for this, what we want to do now, we want to get £500. So what do I need to do to this? I need to multiply it by 5. So I need to multiply this by 5. So if I do 1,200 multiplied by 5, I get an answer of 6,000. Moving on to question 9. Let's just zoom back so we can see it a little bit more clearly on screen. And it says Connor is estimating the answer to 385 plus 1,479. It says he rounds each number to the nearest 10. Work out his estimate. So here we've got 385 plus 1,479, and we're rounding up to the nearest 10. So here the nearest 10 is going to be 390, because remember, if your number ends in 5 you always round up, so that's going to be 390. And this one we're going to round up to 1480. So all we then need to do is add those two numbers up, in which we get an answer of 1870. Then for 9b it says Connor says my estimate will be more than the exact answer. How does he know without working out the exact answer? Well, for this we know that his answer is going to be, his estimated answer is going to be higher, because we have rounded each number up. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine for that 1 mark. Then moving on to question 10, it says here are the salaries in pounds of 6 workers in a company. And for 10a it says work out the mean salary. Well, for this what we need to do first is to work out the mean. We add up all the numbers, so we're going to do 8300 plus 20700 plus 21500, 21500 and another 21500 plus 99000. And then to work that out, add them all up together, divide the answer by 6, because we've got 6 people, in which you should have an answer of 33750. Then for question 10b it says why is the mean not the best average to represent the salaries? Well, there's a couple of reasons in which why the mean is not the best salary. Now, to use the optimum time to use the mean is when numbers are all vaguely similar. So as you can see that these 5 numbers are fairly similar. However, we have got this outlier of 99,000, which you probably can assume is going to be the manager. So something along the lines of, you could say that because the range is large, but then how do you know that the range is large? But I would say something along the lines of that either you state that the values are spread out, you could say, in terms of that they're not similar. Or you could say that an outlier is present. And if you've got an outlier in the data, it is going to mess up the mean. And I would generally say that this bottom answer is probably going to be better. So something I'm mentioning that 99,000 stands out, and that's going to skew or adjust and inflate the average salary. It would be an absolute perfect answer for that 1 mark. Moving on to question 11, it says that Zoe's mass is 55 kilograms. Work out her mass in stones and pounds. And we've got our little indication of our units, that the conversion units that we're going to be using, simply because we're working with imperial units. So for this, let's first of all write down what we were converting. So we're going for 55 kilograms. And what we want to do first is, using this first line, we want to convert that into pounds. So if I do 55 times 2.2, then that's going to give me an answer of 121 pounds. So that would get me 1 mark. So the next thing we then need to do is to then work out what it is in stone. So if I do 121 divided by 14, that's going to give me my answer of 8.6 blah blah blah, and that's going to be in stones. Now the problem is that we want our answer in both stones and pounds. So a little trick you can do, as this is a calculator paper, is if I load up my calculator, which should eventually load up. Is it going to load up? Let's have a look. It's taking its time. There we go. So if I then do 121 divided by 14, obviously it gives me my answer as a fraction. Typically you would press the decimal button, it will get your decimal answer. As you can see, it's 8.6428571. That's a recurring pattern. Now what you could do here is, if you're quite smart, is you can then convert this into, so if I press shift and the SD button, I can convert it into a mixed fraction. And what this then gives me is 8 and 9/14. And as you can see, what this then does is this tells me the stones, and the numerator of the fraction part tells me the pounds. So then what this then is, gives me a final answer of 8 stones and 9 pounds. Now, in order for, just for future reference, in order for this mixed fraction to work in terms of helping you convert between mixed units, is you need to make sure that the denominator is the same value as what is written in the conversion. So you need to make sure, if you're going from stones and pounds, when you've got your mixed number, you always need to make sure that your pounds has got a denominator of 14. So that mixed fraction has to be written where the denominator is 14. So if you had, let's say 7, and let's not use 7, let's go for 2/7, let's say like that, then what you would then need to do is convert this fraction so it's got a denominator of 14, and then it will be 3 stone and 4 pounds, and that's how you can do it from there. Moving on to question 12a, it says the sauce is made from cream and stock in the ratio of 1:6 respectively. How much sauce can be made using 80 millilitres of cream? So for this, all we then need to do is basically multiply 6 by 80, or simply he says, which gives us an answer of 480. Now for this is the amount of stock, and the question is asking how much sauce is made. So what I then need to do is I then need to add 80 millilitres of the cream, and then add those two numbers up, so in which I've got, and again I could just use the calculator for this, but I get an answer of 560 millilitres. For question 12b, it says a different sauce is made from olive oil and tomato juice in the ratio of 1:14 respectively. What fraction of the sauce is olive oil? So for olive oil, what we need to do is basically, now with a fraction, it's basically the number of parts over the total number of parts. So that's how it differs between a ratio and a fraction. Is with a ratio you convert it, well, comparing one part to another part. With a fraction, you're comparing one part to the total. So the total number of parts for olive oil is 1, and the total number of parts is 15. So our answer then is 1/15. Moving on to question 13, it says multiply y by 6 gives the same result as adding 15 to y. Write this as an equation. So for this, if we write this little statement here, so y times 6 is 6y, and that gives us the same result, which basically means equals to adding 15 to y. So that's going to be y plus 15. And so all I need to write in the answer block is 6y equals y plus 15. If you wrote 15 plus y, that's absolutely fine. You'll still get the 2 marks for that. Moving on to question 13b, it says show the value of y is not 4. Now there's a couple of ways in which you could do this. You can either sub y equals 4 into both sides. So if I've got 6y equals y plus 15, if y equals 4, then that's going to be 24. This is going to be 19. They're not equal to each other, so that's why it can't equal 4. An alternative you could have done is basically solve the equation. So we've got 6y equals y plus 15. So here we've got 5y equals 15, so y equals 3. So you could write something along those lines of that, or you can use the top where you're substituting 4 and showing that the two sides aren't equal, and that would be fine for the 1 mark. Moving on to question 14, it says that a golf club is organising a trip for 42 people. The costs are shown in the table. So we've got minibus hire, fuel and 1 game of golf. Each minibus can hold 15 people. Each person will play 2 games of golf and the cost of the trip will be shared equally by the 42 people. Work out the cost per person. So this information here is really important, and obviously we've got our final answer of how we want it written. So let's have a look at the 3 costs that we then need to do. So if we first of all look at the minibus costs. So for the minibus, we've got a total of 42 people. And we know that a minibus contains 15 people. So if I then do 42 divided by 15, and let's get the calculator back up. So 42 divided by 15 gives me an answer of 2.8. Now again, I need to make sure that everyone's on a minibus. So basically we're going to need 3 minibuses. Now the total cost of that is going to be 3 times 450, which comes up to a total of 1350. So that is one cost for the minibus. Then for the games of golf, well, if each person is going to play 2 games of golf, 1 game of golf is £18.50 per person, so that's going to be 42 times 18.5 times 2. And again, we've got 42 people, 1 game is £18.50, and each person is going to play 2 games. So if I type that calculation in, what do I get? Well, I'm going to get an answer of 1554. Then the last thing that's added is the fuel. And fuel is £26 per minibus, and we've got 3 minibuses, so it's going to be 3 times 26, which comes up to a total of £78. So all that's left me to then do is to work out the total costs. So let's just get a different colour pen. So the total cost is going to be 1350 plus 1554 plus 78, which comes up to a grand total of 2952. Now the question says for me to work out the cost per person. So per person, I then need to divide that total cost by 42, and that comes up to a grand total of £71 each. Moving on to question 15, it says that an ordinary fair die is rolled 10 times. Here is the first 9 results, and the question is asking me to write down the probability of getting a 5 on the 10th roll. Now for this, we need to remember that rolling a die is independent. So when you roll 1 die, whatever score you get, it's not going to be affected by the other rolls. So for this, we need to ignore those 9 previous results. So what's the chances of rolling a 5 on an ordinary die? Well, the answer then is going to be 1/6. And again, so don't forget the basics. Again, the fact that we're using those results, it doesn't mention about relative frequency, which is where you're using previous results. This is just flat out asking you the probability of getting a 5 on a die. Moving on to question 16, it says R to W is 1 to 4. Write down the ratio of R squared to W squared. Well, for this, all we need to do is basically just square both numbers. So here we've got 1 squared to 4 squared, in which they would accept that as an answer, or if you actually work that out, so 1 squared is 1, 4 squared is 16, so that would be absolutely fine in terms of writing down your ratios. If you've then included R and W in that, that's absolutely fine as well, but I would say not necessary. Moving on to question 17a, it says a rectangle is drawn on a square grid. On the grid, draw a congruent rectangle. Now for this, all we need to do for congruency, it means exactly the same. So that word there means exactly the same. Now you can rotate it, you can reflect it, that's entirely up to you. With a rectangle it's not going to be an issue. So all you just need to do is draw a 2 by 4 rectangle somewhere on that grid. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. You could have it going stand up, but I would just basically just copy the rectangle, and that's absolutely fine. Moving on to question 17b, it says here is a rectangle on a different square grid. On this grid, draw a similar rectangle that's not congruent. So basically similar means it's been enlarged. Now, so either you can enlarge it by a scale factor of 2, scale factor of 3, would 4 fit? Let's have a look. 4 times 4 is 16. I don't think there's 16 squares. There's certainly 10, so I would probably go for 2. You could also make it smaller by 2, so you could either have a 1 by 2 grid, so you could have something that looks like that, 1 by 2, make sure it's drawn accurately with a ruler. Or I would say most typically, most students would probably have gone for doubling the size. So here we've got 4 by 8, which I might need to use a different colour. So if I draw a 4 by 8, just bear with me while I get this up. So here is our 4, and that's not quite 8. So let me just stretch that out by 1. And then we've got our double the size square. So any of those two would be absolutely fine for our answer for part 17b. Moving on to question 18, it says a box contains 36 chocolates. The chocolates are milk or dark and have a hard or soft centre. 4 ninths of the chocolates have soft centres. There are twice as many milk chocolates as dark. 5 of the dark chocolates have soft centres. So let's have a look at converting this into our two-way table. So for this, using this, we know that the total is got to be 36. So if I just have a little additional column just to help me there, that those little headings there need to add up to 36. Now it says to start off with, now usually the information that's given is typically the order in which you start filling in your numbers. So here we've got 4 ninths, so 4 ninths of 36. Well, 36 divided by 9 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. So from this, I know that there are 16 soft centres. So then now that I've got the total of soft centres, I can now work out from the fact that I know that there are 5 dark soft centre chocolates. 16 take away 5 is 11. So that's the first one I've then filled in. It then says that there are twice as many milk chocolates as there are dark. So if this was x, then this is going to be 2x. So in total I've got 3x equals 36. So single x is going to be 36 divided by 3, which gives me an answer of 12. So that's going to be 12 and that's going to be 24. Then from this I can then fill out what the other two boxes are. So for this box here, I've just got to do 24 minus 11, which gives me 13. And for this box here, we can just do 12 minus 5, which gives me an answer of 7. And again, there's multiple ways in which you can work this out. I would say you get 1 mark for each particular box that you fit in, with some working out, first of all, getting either the 16 soft centres using the first bit of information. But I would say if you've got the numbers filled in correctly, you should get the 4 marks. It then says for 18b, 1 chocolate is chosen at random. What is the probability that is a dark chocolate with a soft centre? So for this, we've got 5 of those altogether out of a total of 36. So our fraction or probability is going to be 5 over 36. And if you've written that as a decimal, then that will be absolutely fine as well. Moving on to question 18C, it says what is the probability that it has a hard centre? Well, for the fact that it's got a hard centre, let's just add those two numbers up, in which we get 20. So it's going to be 20 over 36. Now we can simplify 20 over 36 because we can divide both numbers by 4, in which we get an answer of 5 over 9. So any of those two answers would be absolutely fine. Moving on to 19, it says describe fully the single transformation that maps A onto B. So for this, all we need to recognise is the fact that it's a rotation. So that would get you 1 mark. Another mark would be for the angle, which is 180 degrees or half turn, you could say. And then you then want to mention the centre, in which you could either give the coordinate, which is 0, 0, or you could write the origin, and that would be our third mark. But you definitely need to write all 3 bits of information for that one. Moving on to question 20, it says use Pythagoras' theorem to work out the value of x. So again, the first thing we want to do here is label the triangle. So we've got AB, recognizing that the side opposite the right angle is going to be our C. And then using the formula for Pythagoras, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, substitute the numbers in. So I've got 17.2. Just gone a bit quick with the square there. So 17.2 squared plus 12.9 squared equals x squared. Type this into our calculator, in which we should have an answer of, let's just type that in, 12.9 squared plus 17.2 squared, and we get an answer of 462.25 equals x squared. So x is going to be the square root of 462.25, in which we should end up with an answer of 21.5. Moving on to question 21, it says that a 3-figure bearing of B from A is 0 to 1. And it says work out the 3-figure bearing of C from A. Now for this, we need to remember that we're starting at A and we're ending at C. So we're starting at A, which is at this point here. So what we're wanting is this total bearing. Now it tells us in the question that A to B is 21, so that's 21 degrees. So the total bearing is going to be 21 plus 58, which gives me an answer of 79. And one of the rules of bearings is you need to give the bearing as a 3-digit number, so it needs to be 079 degrees. If you wrote down 79 degrees, you would lose a mark because it needs to be written as a 3-digit number. For question 22, it says how many edges does a triangular prism have? Well, if we quickly draw or sketch a triangular prism, it's basically how many straight lines have I drawn? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the answer is 9. Moving on to question 23, it says 3 shops sell the same type and size of lip balm stick. Which shop is the best value for 8 sticks, and what is the total cost in that shop? Show your working to support your answer. So let's first of all, let's just zoom out first so we can have a bit of space to work with. And so what we need to do is we need to work out the cost of buying 8 sticks at each shop. So if I write shop A to begin with, so shop A just sells individual, so that's going to be £2.39 multiplied by 8, which gives me a total of £19.12. Then I then work out for shop B. Well, shop B, the offer is buy 1 and get 1 half price. So for this, for every, I'm going to buy 4 lip balms at full price, and I'm going to buy 4 at half price, which is £1.54. And again, if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of £18.48. Then finally for shop C, it's basically a pack of 4 was £11.14, is now a 6th off. So first thing I need to do is work out the discount. So it's a 6th of £11.40, which gives me a total of £1.90 off. So the cost of a pack of 4 is going to be £11.40 minus £1.90, which comes up to a total of £9.50. So I'm going to need 2 packs. So that's going to be 2 times £9.50, which comes up to a total of £19. So all that's left for me to then do is to compare these 3 totals. And as you can see, which of those is the cheapest? Well, it's going to be £18.48 at shop B. So all I need to write here is B and £18.48. Moving on to question 24, it says that the boundaries of a city form a trapezium. And it says the population density is equal to the number of people over the area. The population density is 9,450 people per square kilometre. Work out the number of people who live in the city. So for this, I know the population density, which is this number here. So in terms of this, I know this number here. So in terms of working this out, the first thing I need to do is work out the area of the trapezium. Now, how do I do that? Well, I use the formula of A plus B multiplied by H divided by 2. Now here, my A and B values are the 2 parallel sides, and my H is the height. So for this, the area is going to be equal to 10 plus 14 multiplied by 8, all divided by 2. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 96 kilometers squared. So that there is my area. Now the question is asking to work out the number of people. So for this then, the number of people is simply going to be, well, for this I need to take area over to the other side. So it's going to be the pop density multiplied by the area. So that's going to be 9450 multiplied by 96. And that gives me an answer of 907,200. And there is my answer. Moving on to question 25, let's just zoom in so we can see it a little bit more on the screen. There we go. It says round 1 of voting at a head student is taking place at a school. To reach round 2, a student must receive at least 4/15 of the 4/15 of the votes. What is the largest number of students that can reach the round 2? It says circle your answer. Now for this, what we need to do is basically, all we need to do for this one is see how many 4s go into 15. So the smallest number of pupils, because this fraction has been simplified, the smallest number of pupils it can be is 15. So for this, what we then need to do is basically see how many 4s go into 15, and that's going to give me an answer roughly around 3. So there is our answer that we need to circle. It then says there are 900 votes in round 1. Sean receives 180 votes. Amy draws a pie chart to represent the results. Here is her method to work out the angle needed for Sean. Is Amy's method correct? And again, I've got a really bugbear about how they set these questions out. Much prefer you to have space to work it out and then give your answer to yes or no. Because what you don't want to do is come to a conclusion of saying, right, is it yes or is it no? You click one and then you're working out the maths to prove whether that answer is correct, in which it could be wrong. So I much prefer, I wished AQA just did this the other way around, show you working out and then go from there. Now the one you want to tick is the fact that it's no, and the reason why it's no is because when you're doing angles, you need to multiply by 360, not 100. So here you could write something along the lines of, in terms of giving you a reason, is that she should have multiplied by 360, not 100, in which I should write Amy should have multiplied by 360, not 100. And for 1 mark, it's really important that even though you tick, you've got to give a valid reason. So if you tick no, but your reason is wrong, you would lose that mark. You could also say something along the lines of that Amy worked out the percentage, not the angle. That would be absolutely fine as well for that single mark. But you need to make sure you're ticking no and the correct response. Moving on to question 26 says, here is a prism drawn on an isometric grid, and the question is asking us to work out the volume of the grid. So let's just zoom out so we can see the question in all its entirety. And let me just zoom up a little bit. There we go. So what I would recommend that you do is you split this shape up into two sections. So this is our A and this is our B. So the volume of A is, if we count the number of squares, so that's going to be what, 5, and that's 2. So it's going to be 5 times 6 times 2, which gives us an answer of 60. And then if I then work out the volume of B, which is 2 by 2 by 6, which gives us an answer of 24, then all that's left for me to then do is add those two numbers together, in which I get 84. So the answer then is going to be 84 centimetre cubed, in which the units are done for me. Moving on to question 27, it says that Tasha drove 198 miles. Her average speed for the first 3 hours was 45 miles per hour. Her average speed for the rest of the journey was 31.5 miles per hour. Work out the average speed of the whole journey. So if I just zoom out a little bit, in which then for this, what we need to do is that the average speed is equal to the total distance divided by the total time. Now for this, what we then need to do is work out what the total distance is and what the total time is. Well, we know that the total distance is 198. So the only thing that's left for us to do is to work out the total time. So for this, what we need to do first is, first of all, work out the distance of A, because that's the information that's missing from this point here. Now, using the triangle of distance, speed, time, we know that distance is equal to speed times time. So that's going to be 3 times 45, which gives me an answer of 135 miles. Then from this, we can then work with our second bit of information, and it says that her average speed for the rest of the journey was 31.5 miles per hour. So the distance of B is what we need to work out. And then we know that the total distance is 198. We know the distance of A is 135. So if I take out those two numbers, I get an answer of 63 miles. So that's the distance of B. Now from this, I can then work out what the time of B was. And again, time is equal to distance divided by speed. So we know that the speed is 31.5. We now know that the distance is 63. If I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 2 hours. Now for this, we can then work out what the total time is. Is going to be equal to 2 hours plus 3 hours. So that gives us 5 hours. So then using this information now to work out the average speed, let's just use a different colour pen. So the average speed is going to be equal to, and again using this formula, 198 divided by 5, and that gives me an answer of 39.6 miles per hour. And there is my final answer for that one. So 39.6. Then moving on to question 28, it says that here is a term-to-term rule sequence, a rule for a sequence. Double the previous term and add 3. The first 3 terms of the sequence are a plus 1, 2a plus 5, and 4a plus 13. Show that the sum of the first 4 terms is a multiple of 3. Now, sum basically means add. So what I need to do is add the first 4 terms together. Now the fourth term is, again, if I use this rule, is double the previous term and add 3. So if I double this term here, I'm going to get 8a plus 26, and then I then need to add 3. So that's going to give me 8a plus 29. So then to work out the sum of the first 4 terms, I'm going to add these 4 things together. So I've got a plus 1 plus 2a plus 5 plus 4a plus 13 plus 8a plus 29. And collectively, adding them all up comes up to 8a plus 29. Sorry, that gives me, doesn't give me that. That's the wrong term there. It gives me a total of a plus 2a plus 4a plus 8a, gives me an answer of 15a. And then adding up the numbers, I get an answer of 48. Now to show it's a multiple of 3, all I need to do is factorise this, so I could take 3 out. So I've got 3 lots of 5a plus 16. So as you can see from this that we've got, if I just scroll it down a little bit, so as it's a factor of 3, it's a multiple of 3. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine in the fact that we've taken a 3 out, the total, and that would be fine. You could also say something along the lines of that 15a is a multiple of 3, as 15 is. And you could also say that 48 is a multiple of 3, and a multiple of 3 plus a multiple of 3 gives you an answer that is multiple of 3. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine for those 3 marks. Then moving on to our last question, it says the straight line passes through 314 and 1232. Work out the equation of the line, give your answer in the form of y equals mx plus c. Now there are several ways in which you can do this question. Now for me personally, what I would go for is I would use simultaneous equations. So if I substitute the x and the y ordinate to give one equation, then substitute x and the other x and y values to give me another equation, then what I end up with, and using this formula here, is I get for the first one, let's just make sure we've got some colour coordination, I've got 14 equals, and it's going to be 3x plus, so 3m plus c, plus c, and then I've got for the second equation, I've got 32 equals 12m plus c. Now as you can see, I've got the same number of, so taking these two equations, if I just write it more commonly as a simultaneous equation, I've got 12m plus c equals 32, and I've got 3m plus c equals 14. Now as you can see, I've got the same number of c's and they're both the same sign, so I take away the two equations. So 12 take away 3m is going to give me 9m, the c's cancel out, and 32 take away 14 gives me an answer of 18. So that means that m is going to equal 2. So I've got my m value straight away. Now if I pick one of the equations, let's go for 3m plus c equals 14, as that's the smallest. So using 3m plus c equals 14, and knowing that m equals 2, I get 6 plus c equals 14. So therefore c is going to equal 14 take away 6, which gives me an answer of 8. So therefore, combining these two bits of information and y equals mx plus c, we get an answer of y equals 2x plus 8. And there we go.